The call comes at 2:47 in the morning. Not a ringtone, a vibration pattern you've trained yourself to wake up to, different from every other buzz your phone makes. You're dressed and out the door in 4 minutes. You've done it in 3. There's a body in a warehouse off the interstate. The local police are holding the scene. They resent that, but they hold it anyway because when the bureau shows up, the bureau runs it. You drive in silence, no radio. You use that time to think through what you already know, which isn't much, and what questions you'll need answered in the first 10 minutes on scene, which is everything. You've been a special agent for 9 years. You didn't start as one. Nobody starts as one. You applied out of law school, survived a background investigation so thorough that investigators interviewed people from your 3rd grade class. You survived a polygraph, a psychological evaluation, a physical fitness test, a panel interview with 5 senior agents who had seen everything and were impressed by nothing. You passed. Most don't. The Academy is 20 weeks at Quantico, the Marine base turned federal training campus where the mud is real and the instructors are not interested in your excuses. You qualified on the Glock, you qualified on defensive tactics, on surveillance driving, on interviewing techniques that took you years to actually understand. You wrote case reports until you could write them in your sleep. You almost did. Your first posting was a resident agency in a mid-sized city in the Midwest, a 2-agent office responsible for a territory the size of a small country. You worked bank robberies, fugitives, civil rights violations, public corruption, healthcare fraud, child exploitation. You worked everything because there was nobody else to work it. That breadth made you something the specialized agents in the big field offices weren't: adaptable. You learned to read people in those early years, not in the academic way they teach at the academy, but in the street-level way that comes from sitting across from 100 different liars in 100 different rooms. You learned that people telling the truth lean in. People who are lying manage their distance. You learned that innocent people get angry and guilty people get helpful, up to a point. You learned the point. An investigation is nothing like what civilians think it is. It isn't a chase, it's architecture. You build it from the foundation up, methodically, sourcing every brick, every piece of evidence, every statement, every record, because the building has to stand in court, in front of a jury who will be asked to make a decision that sends a human being to federal prison. You can't rush architecture. A building put up fast comes down faster. You spend weeks on cases where nothing happens, where you're reading financial records at midnight or watching a surveillance location from a car that smells like the coffee you spilled on the seat 3 days ago. You spend days making calls that go nowhere. You run down leads that don't lead anywhere. You learn something from every dead end, where not to look. That's valuable. That's always valuable. When you get a break, it often comes from something small, a phone record that puts someone in the wrong city, a financial transaction that's $97 below the reporting threshold, too precise to be coincidence, a witness who says something that contradicts something else, not dramatically, just by a few words, the kind of discrepancy you only catch if you've been paying attention to everything. You've been paying attention to everything. You went undercover once, 3 years in, on a case involving a network that had been stealing identities from veterans. You wore a wire into a restaurant in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon and bought information from a man who thought you were a buyer and would have thought differently if he'd seen what was in your jacket. He didn't. You sat with him for 90 minutes and had a conversation that would put him away for 7 years, and you kept your voice level the entire time. When you walked out into the daylight, you sat in your car for 10 minutes before you could trust your hands on the wheel. That case got a commendation. What it actually got you was 2 years of checking over your shoulder in parking garages, because federal prison clarifies things for people, and some people don't respond to that clarification with acceptance. The threats are part of it. Most are nothing. People who are angry, people who are frightened, people who confuse bravado with capability. But some are real. Some people have grievances and histories, and the specific combination of willingness and means that turns words into actions. Your job is to treat them all as real until the evidence proves otherwise. You read the assessments, you know the names, you don't forget the names. Success in this job is invisible. Nobody throws a parade because a conspiracy collapsed before anyone got hurt. Nobody writes a headline about the case that never became a case. The victories are silent. Only the failures make noise. You have made peace with that, mostly. The toll is real, and the Bureau doesn't talk about it the way it probably should. The divorce rate is what it is. You miss birthdays, anniversaries, school plays, games, dinners, nights. You miss the ordinary texture of a life lived on a normal schedule. Your family learns to celebrate things on the days you're available, rather than the days they're supposed to happen. That becomes normal. You're not sure that's good. You have a therapist. You've had one for 5 years. You don't tell many people that. You should probably tell more people that. The hardest part is not the danger. Danger you train for. The hardest part is the weight of what you carry out of the rooms you walk into. You see people at the worst moments of their lives, victims and perpetrators both, and you have to stay functional, stay analytical, stay professional, and then go home and be a person. You get better at the first 3. The 4th one requires constant maintenance. There are agents who burn out. You've watched it happen, the slow erosion of the thing that brought them here. The idealism that sounds naive to say out loud, but was real and was necessary and kept them moving through the years when nothing was working. When it goes quietly. One day they're filing for a transfer to a less demanding assignment, a desk job, a training role. You understand. You've thought about it after particularly brutal stretches. You stay anyway. You stay because you're good at it. Not arrogantly good. Arrogance gets cases thrown out and people hurt. Just honestly good, the way you're supposed to be honest about everything in this work. When you're wrong, you need to know. The evidence tells you. You listen. By 6 in the morning, you have a direction. Not a suspect. You don't use that word until you can defend it. But a direction. You know which records to pull, which people to talk to, roughly in what order. You take the local detective's styrofoam cup of terrible coffee because it's a gesture, and gestures matter with people whose cooperation you'll need for the next several months. You drive back in the early light thinking about the one question nobody could answer tonight. That's where the case lives right now, inside that question. You'll pull the thread attached to it and see what it connects to and how far it goes and what comes loose when you pull. It might go nowhere. It might go everywhere. That's the nature of it. That's always the nature of it. You pull into the field office. The parking lot is already half full. Other agents with other cases and other early mornings that don't get easier and don't get explained well at dinner parties. You badge in. You go to your desk. You open the file. The work begins, again, the same way it always does, with a question nobody has answered yet, and you and the long, patient discipline of finding out. You've been doing this for 9 years. You'll do it again tomorrow, and the day after that, until the day you can't anymore, and someone younger takes your place, and you become a story that new agents tell each other about the old days. You wouldn't trade it, not for anything.